Welcome to the Prime Venture Partners podcast. Today we have with us Vidit Atre, co-founder and CEO of Meesho. Vidit is somebody that we've known for many years and have been absolutely delighted to see his success, both for Meesho and for himself. So welcome to the show, Vidit.
Thank you so much, Amit, for having me here and helping us share our story to the broader audience.
Absolutely, Vidit. And you have a phenomenal story, because I know that Vidit is and Meesho are probably going to rank in the category of like an Airbnb or others, which is truly a category creating startup, not even a category defining one, and something that we love to do at Prime. And building a category creating thing is easier said than done. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the early days of Meesho, and in particular with respect to one, how did you conceive of this idea? I think you were trying to do like a Swiggy for fashion earlier, but what are the early days like? And secondly, what are some of the challenges when you're doing something unique and new like the world has never seen before?
Yeah, sure. So if I go back to 2015, I think that's when Sanjeev and I left our jobs to start something. I think back then we did not have a very clear idea around what we want to do, but we said, let's pick something which is really large and inspiring enough to keep us interested for a very long time. And we wanted to kind of do something that we relate with as well, right? It should not be that, hey, we just don't connect with the problem. So both of us come from middle class backgrounds, have like transacted from unorganized retail for a very long time. So I think after looking at multiple spaces, both of us said that, hey, bringing these small businesses online looks like a interesting, large, and a problem that we can relate with. Because if you look at 85% of the entire retail in India is unstructured long tail. And most of what was coming online back in 2015 with your large e-commerce platforms were mostly the branded categories in electronics, smartphones, white goods, branded fashion. And almost all of the unorganized retail was primarily offline. So we said, let's take a goal of bringing this online. How, we don't know, and we will figure it out as we go on the ground. But let's kind of pick this space because it sounds exciting and we relate with the problem. I think that's how we started. So then we said, let's figure out how do we do it. So we started to go, both of us are in Bangalore. So we started to go to small shops in Koramangala and HSR. And we will just go and ask them, like, what problems can we solve for you? And a lot of these small shops will say that they have their customer audience local. So we said, can we bring these customers online and make it convenient for them to transact from you? So we built, our first app was called Fashnear, Fashion Nearby, put together into a single word. And people could open an app and see all fashion shops, mostly small businesses, on an app, choose up to 3 products that they want to try and buy at home. And the chotu from the shop will be sent to that house, give the product. They will try, if they like something, they keep, and the rest could be sent back. So we did this for about 3-4 months and realized it doesn't work. I think one big learning that we had was we started building something purely from a small business POV, and we forgot the customer to a big extent. And when we realized, for a customer, when they're buying fashion, in fashion, selection, variety matters quite a lot. And you can never build enough selection if you do it locally. And I think that was a really big miss, but I would say a big learning that we had as very early entrepreneurs. So we said, this doesn't work. So, okay, fine. So then we started to go on the ground again. And this time we started to go and speak to a lot of these small businesses again. Okay, let's figure out what their problems is, right? Because this doesn't work, especially for smaller businesses. So then Sanjeev and I used to do a very unique thing. So we used to go to these small shops, go to the shopkeeper and say, hey, we're going to sit on the side for some time and just observe you. We will not bother you, but we just want to observe you because we want to figure out what are the problems that you have today and what can we solve. And we just want to observe. So we used to go to these shops. I remember a lot of these shops in Koramangala, HSR again. We'll go in the morning, sit on the side. The shopkeeper would be like quite nice to us, like feed us lunch, feed us tea and so on. We'll play with their kids, but we'll just observe what's happening. And I remember like one day we saw one behavior that we found extremely interesting, which was that a lot of times a customer will walk into a shop and buy an unbranded t-shirt and come to the counter, give the money, collect the product. And the shopkeeper will then ask the customer, hey, can you give me a WhatsApp number? Because I want to add you to my WhatsApp group. And why do I add you to my WhatsApp group? Because every time I get new products into my shop, I take WhatsApp I take photographs on WhatsApp and post it on the group. And you can even buy my products there. You don't need to come to the shop again. Like many people just keep blocking by referring to that photograph, and I just block it for them. I send the Chotu from my shop to the house, like collect money, give the product. And we observed this couple of times. In the evening, we asked this guy, hey, you were doing this. Why were you doing this? He said, I realized this. My brother who runs the shop in Whitefield started doing this. And today half of his business comes from this WhatsApp group. So I started doing it today. Like I've been doing it for some time. And now I'm doing like 30-40% of my entire business on WhatsApp groups. And we found it like fascinating. Like, so this person essentially figured out a way to retarget and remarket to the existing customers, essentially make a more and more LTV from them by running these WhatsApp groups. So we said, what do we enable like in every single business, every single small business to do the exact same thing of leveraging WhatsApp as a channel to sell to customers? Because that was like primarily online. It was happening on WhatsApp and it was a existing behavior. You're not creating anything. If we can just enable and supercharge it, it would work really well. We went to another shop and we observed it again. We went to another shop, we observed it again. We said, this is the thing. So we went back and said, how can we solve this? And we realized during the entire process, there were like lots of, I would say, teething problems, right? Like there's some problem that this guy has. So for example, many times people will look at the photograph and say, I want to buy this. And shopkeeper will say someone already blocked it, but still available, right? So a lot of times people are pissed. Maintaining this in a register was a big hassle. Collecting payments, people can't pay online because back then all these payment apps were not so popular. So there are multiple problems. So we said, can we build an app that will solve all these problems for everyone and make all of them like start this WhatsApp group and sell to the existing customers? And that's when we created the version 1 of Meesho app. So Meesho was supposed to become their online shop, Meri shop. And we started to kind of go back to the market and give it to them. Okay, hey, this is the app, use this to run your business on WhatsApp, Facebook. Back then, Instagram was not popular. And we started to see some people adopting it. So we went more wide, we went online and kept doing this more and more and more and more. We realized, like after again months and months of doing this, that some people are using it. So this was not as bad as a first product. Like the first product, most people don't like it. So we know it is not supposed to be taken forward. This time, some people are using it, some people not using it. Retention is not zero, but it's not great. So we are like stuck and we keep trying, we keep improving our product to see what can happen. But it just never like becoming large fast enough, right? Like that was happening for quite some time. And then we will go back and say like something is wrong, it's just not growing. We'll go back to the small business who's not using the app. He says, hey, I'm busy with my offline shop. Or this guy would say, most of these small shopkeepers are also like really old people who don't want to adopt new behaviors. So I'm very happy with my offline traffic and this is happening, that's happening. So what do we do? Plus the value prop that we were solving for them is mostly productivity. So I'm not getting them new business and we are not helping them reduce their cost. And a lot of these small businesses don't even care about productivity. So even if they're using WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, they are saying, fine, like I have the time to do all of this work. You don't need to kind of solve it for me because most of the time I'm sitting idle in my shop. So people who knew the problem, also we're not solving a very core problem for them. And newer people were not adopting these behaviors because of multiple reasons. So it was like somewhere in the middle. So then we went back. But this time we were looking at like who's using our app and who's not. And we found a small group of people who were really using our app lot of time every single day, like just happening again and again. So we figured out what's the common pattern. So I started to read their details and all of them were women. So I said, can we reach out to them and figure out like what's happening? So I picked up my phone, added them on WhatsApp and said, hey, I'm Vidit from Meesho. You are using our app. I would love to chat with you to understand how you're using our product, right? And I spoke to a lot of them. And many times when you pick up the call and you talk to them, they say, hey, I use Meesho app to run my WhatsApp boutique. And first of all, like when we heard it for the first time, it just did not make sense to us. Like, I don't even know what does a WhatsApp boutique mean, but many people kept using this word. They'll say, I'm a reseller and I'm running a WhatsApp boutique and I'm using an app for this. So it did not make sense to us. And we kept doing this. After that, I realized, I think we need to go a bit more deeper to understand what to do. So what we did, we figured out some of these women who are based in Bangalore. I reached out to them and said, hey, we are coming to your place. We want to really understand your story. And most of them were very forthcoming. Come. Like, no one listened to our story. You're listening to us. It's great. So I went to the houses and I started to understand, like, why are they using our app? And I think I heard some of these stories. And the most beautiful thing was all of these stories had a very similar pattern, like all of them. And that's when we realized, like, we are onto something really large that no one knows about. So all these stories go like this, that, hey, I am very educated and I'm very ambitious. Before I got married, I had a kid. I was working in some place. But after that, either I decided, or because of the like cultural problems, or you can say the family wanted her not to work. So she said, I'm not working. But because she's ambitious, so she really wants to kind of make some impact. So it's very common for women in India who are ambitious to start some business at home, right? Like, some women start to make food at home and sell to people. Some women start these boutiques at home where they buy a lot of these fashion products, come back and start to sell to people around them. Some women become tuition teachers to kids around them. Like, very, very common, right? Because they want to do something, right? First of all, it's because you want to be financially independent. And second, you want to feel respected and feel proud about making some professional contributions, right? So some of them are exactly this. Okay, hey, I have been wanting to start my fashion boutique for years now. And then I go to my husband or I go to my family and say, please give me some money for working capital so I can go to a wholesale market and buy these products. And most likely I get the answer, which is no, that, hey, we don't have money right now. Maybe we'll try next year, next year, next year. And she was extremely frustrated. Okay, hey, I'm not able to fulfill my dream because I don't have access to capital. Then they realized that, hey, so many people around us are now buying products online. Like, people buy products on e-commerce apps online. People buy products on Facebook groups online. Why don't I sell products to people online? And the beautiful thing is, people don't need physical products anymore. They can just look at a photograph and buy it. So instead of like starting an offline boutique, what they did, they created these WhatsApp groups, added people from their community, which is friends, family, neighbors, and then went to a wholesale market, added all these suppliers on their WhatsApp, asked them to keep sending all the new products they have. She will curate it on a daily basis and send to this WhatsApp group where her potential customers are. And people will say, I like this, I like this. And she will ask the supplier to directly ship it to her, right? And she will do it once, twice, and then she realizes that her business has already started without any working capital required, because she doesn't have to buy inventory anymore, right? She's essentially running as any marketplace runs without any inventory.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. There's so many interesting follow-up questions I have. So let me just maybe pause you for a second here. One thing that is common across all of the kind of pivotal moments in the company is you're constantly engaged with the users, right? Literally, from what you were saying about Fashioneer to the first idea of they're running WhatsApp groups, men, or mostly probably these shopkeepers would have been men, to these women running these WhatsApp boutiques, etc. And I also noticed while kind of preparing for this podcast that you have a program in the company called Listen or Die or some such thing, which is that, look, you have to talk to users all the time, no matter who you are. It doesn't have to be only the product managers or the salespeople or whatever. So is that like a really core kind of value at Meesho, like in terms of even now when you've scaled up to millions, if not tens of millions of businesses that are working with you and so forth?
Yeah, so, and I was coming to that. Basically, if you see, the only common thread across is all of our ideas have ever come when we have been close to the user. It never comes while we are brainstorming on some whiteboard in office. It has never come while we are discussing it with someone or on an Excel sheet. It almost 110% of the times always comes from the user. And this has happened every single year, by the way. This is like the 0 to 1 journey. But every single year, whenever we have found some very powerful insight, it has always come from the users. And that's why, like, in our 9 values in the company, the first value is what we call it the user first value. And Listen or Die, which you referred to, is the exact same thing, which is all new people who join the company are supposed to speak to users. Every project, by the way, that we do, everyone, before they come and present what they're doing, they have to essentially have like few slides just talking about, and they are termed Listen or Die in the company, all those slides where they talk about what did the user say about this. Because I think we realize this more than anyone else, that if you are building a product which is not for yourself, right? Like in our case, we did not ourselves use this product. We were not homemakers and we were not these women and we were not these small businesses. So from day one, I think that realization was very strong that we are not building this product for ourselves, which also means it is very, very hard to build a good intuitive or a judgment around this particular product because we need to build it for someone else. And we overcompensated for that by staying extremely close to users. For the first, I would say 5 years, I used to have all of our top users on my WhatsApp list, every single one of them. And they used to use me as like the support center. A product is delayed, they will reach out to me, right? Something happens, they will reach out to me. And I wanted that direct channel because that was extremely useful for us while we are building like newer and newer things. So in summary, I would say it's extremely important. And I would say, again, this would become important for all new entrepreneurs when first they're building for a customer that is at least not them. Like, because this is the only way you get access to insights. Or second, when you're building something very bottoms up, right? Like very fundamental, very bottoms up. If you're building something, if you're building a category defining company, right? Like you're building something new, again, I believe it will always and always come from the user. There's no way you can figure out these insights from anywhere else.
Completely agree. Switching gears to talk about this category defining or category creating company, how do you rally, the whole kind of both your employees, prospective investors, others kind of around the table to this vision? Because you're learning yourself, right? Because you might, I don't know if you pitched Fashioneer ever, but you're doing this now. Tomorrow you're doing this WhatsApp shop, SaaS, Dukaan Tech. Third day you're doing, women-led social commerce. Fourth day you're doing, SMB businesses going online, whatever. So it's changing.
No, I think you should ask people on the board and they'll tell you like every year, this looks like a very different company. And I think I have believed that every single time, like the way to grow, that keep growing and keeping that hyper growth strong within the company keeps happening when you keep evolving as a business, right? Like, so today we're able to see one part of the problem very, very clearly, and a big part of the problem is still unclear. And I think as we get closer and closer to some of these, as we unwrap a lot of these problems, we keep changing around this. And I think that's what we have done. We have never stuck to what should be there and what should not be there. Now the complexity that comes is alignment, right? Like, which is, hey, you can do it, but sometimes it could look like chaos to either your shareholders or to your team. And I think one thing that we have done like very well is we aligned people to the broader problem really well, which is, hey, like all of these are solutions, right? But the problem is still the same. Like from day one till today, I don't think our problem has changed. Our problem is still the same, which is we're digitizing these small businesses. We are bringing the unorganized retail online. The how keep changes, and the how changes basis our learnings of what works and what doesn't work, of experimentation, of failing, of learning, right? But the core problem stays the same. And then the alignment across the board with every single person that we are moving toward this problem, I think people understand that, hey, this is how we learn and evolve. That did not change. And second thing that I think we kept doing really well is just clear communication with everyone. Like even today, I will tell you, we've had a weekly all hands every single week for the last 3 years, irrespective of what changes, doesn't change. And that's like one big forum for us to communicate everything, change in direction, our broader goal, our broader vision, our broader mission. You ask the junior most person in the company that what is our strategy for the next 1 year and what is the vision and mission of the company, that person will be able to tell you clearly, because we keep reinforcing this again and again, and people are encouraged to ask us more and more, right? So this happens in board meetings for sure, but even here. So I think that alignment through communication has been there as well. But keeping people aligned over the broader goal or the broader vision we have has really made things stay very stable.
Absolutely. No, that's phenomenal. I know you also have this practice where even before you got funded, right, you would keep people updated on your kind of monthly metrics and so on and so forth. And so I think communicating and over communicating as you've scaled up so much has got to have helped you in the journey for scaling the company.
Correct, very much.
Absolutely. Switching gears, let's talk a little bit about kind of building the team in the early days. I know you're very passionate about this, although the world has changed and people are raising all kinds of money at all levels, right? Starting from the seed stage, of course, to later stage, you guys have raised large amounts of capital lately. So how would you advise entrepreneurs to think about team building, right? Partly, of course, what you did, but landscape in 2015 versus 2021 is also a little bit different. Maybe just some of the thoughts on hiring and retaining talent inside the company, especially with the vantage point of an early stage entrepreneur.
Sure. So I think I'll go back to our story first and then also connect to where the ecosystem has reached today, because I think there are fundamental changes that also require some fine tuning to how people approach it today. But if I go back, I would say we were very opportunistic to when we were starting up, right? So if you remember 15, 16 was a time when a lot of companies shut down.
Yes.
So there are a massive number of ex-entrepreneurs in the market who have the exact same DNA as us, like exactly like what Sanjeev and I used to think. So I remember out of the first 15 and 20 people we hired, especially like a mid to higher level, every single one of them was an ex-entrepreneur, every single one of them, because there were so many available. And that also made our job much easier because these are generalists. There's nothing like it's not that, hey, I do this and I don't do that. They have very high levels of commitment, very high levels of ownership. And a lot of these people essentially are very okay to learn, experiment. They have seen failures in their last company and they know this is the non-linear journey of getting to the right answer after falling so many times, right? And that's why even when we were going through these pivots, it was perfectly okay to them. It was never that, hey, what's happening? It was never chaotic enough. So I would say we were very opportunistic basis when we were starting up. Second thing that we did, and I think back then it was not so, I would say, like popular, was back then people did not realize, especially the younger folks in the ecosystem, did not realize the value of ESOPs. It was just cash. And people will come and, like, when you're interviewing them, a lot of people don't even understand the value of this. They will stick to cash. So I think we spend a lot of time making people understand that, hey, how can you build wealth if the company works out? Like, why it makes sense for you to come here only if you make this wealth, right? So we again made sure that we went out of our way and gave people substantial ESOPs to make sure they feel invested in the company, right? Like people we liked. I think that was another thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we still have most of the people from our early journey with the company even now, because they feel as they have the same ownership of the company as Sanjay and I would have, right? Like the same feeling of being an owner of the company. I think that was really, really important. The other thing that we did, I think, was also, and that is a practice that we even follow today. And I think that is, again, contextual to our kind of company, right? So when we were doing something like this, it was very unique to people. Imagine investors were not able to size the opportunity and get excited. How will a general engineer out there or a general young guy who wants to work with a startup understand whether I should join the startup or something else? So what we used to do is, at the time of the interview, I used to give them 10 to 20 phone numbers of our users. And I used to tell them, go and speak to them and get some insights related to some problem statement. So people think that this is an assignment, but while they're doing this, by the way, everyone will come back and say, I never thought that an app could change people's lives in such a big manner, right? And many of them used to get inspired. Many of them used to connect this with someone in their family, either their mother or the sister or someone else. Okay, hey, if I become a part of this, it feels to me that I'll be helping someone like that, and that would be inspiring to me. And I think that worked really well, because if you pitch it to them, it doesn't make sense. But when they start speaking to them and they realize, hey, someone was able to buy a gift for her kid, and that happened because of the app, and she feels really confident, or someone is now getting a lot more respect in her family from her in-laws, from her husband because of this app, that is a very large change, right? And if we can make it happen for millions of women in India, I think all of us can sleep well at night, that we are part of something really large. So I think we did this as well. And that also worked really well. And even today, I think that practice is still followed. People, even the senior most people that I hire, CXOs, they get to do the same thing. Even they today speak to some of our users and get the same insight, because that's a hack that works really well. Like after speaking to some of them, if you connect with them, no one ever drops off, right? So I think we use some of this that worked really well for us. Again, we were in a very different context. If I connect it to what's happening today, we were in a very different context. We were always out of money. Even when we had some money, it was very, very less. So We used to get people at 1/4 their salary, 1/3 their salary, because that's what we could pay. But I think today that context has changed. Like capital is easily available. People have raised a lot of money even before they even start building on a product. So you don't have to solve for some of this. Ex-entrepreneurs, I don't think are as easily available as it was back then for us. So I think a lot of this has changed, but some fundamentals will stick, right? The fundamentals are, because capital is easily available, ESOP is easily available, what people care about is what kind of company are they working with. I would say, like, I would do the equivalent of making people speak to our users even today and make sure this person comes into our company, not somewhere else, right? Because I still remember that made a big difference for us. So I would say some things are same, some things have changed, but making people really mission aligned, connect with the problem, all of that is very, very important when no other real data is available to say whether this company will take off or will not take off.
Phenomenal. No, very, very interesting. I think being close to your users is at the heart of not just your product and your business strategy, but also your hiring strategy. So that is definitely a big takeaway and music to my ears, having been a practitioner at product management for many, many years and decades, right? So I'm really glad to see entrepreneurs like yourself doing it. Switching gears, maybe talk a little bit about just the overall landscape of e-commerce in India, right? So of course we have, for lack of a better term, let me call them the first gen e-commerce companies like the Flipkarts and the Amazons and so forth in terms of physical commerce. Then you have the incumbents, right? Like the Tatas and the Bianis and the Reliances of the world. Then you have new folks like yourself, the new leaders, right? Like whether it is Meesho or other people doing social commerce or video commerce or etc. So how is all this sort of panning out in terms of any kind of macro trends that you can share with our users from a consumer point of view, as opposed to maybe the small business point of view?
Yeah, sure. So, and I will, I think, do both consumer and the small business POV. So I'll first of all talk about why this is the time, right? Like, why were we not doing this discussion like 6 years ago? And I'm sure we will not do this again after 6 years. I think we've been lucky with the timing as well. So India's had two big inflection points in the last, I would say, 3-4 years. One was Jio, right? So we started up in 15, 16, and then Jio happened. And suddenly most of our current audience has come online in that period because of that. Like data cost went down and the online penetration, especially in small town cities where people generally buy from small businesses, went up like crazy. So our TAM and the size of the opportunity became quite large. And the second big inflection point is the pandemic now, right? Like all of us know it has been really bad for all of us in many ways. But if you just talk about online adoption, over the last 1.5 years, the number of small businesses and the number of consumers who have come online is crazy. Like we used to hear stories from small businesses when we were trying to take them online 2 years ago. "Mere ko ye nahi chamakta. I don't want to learn something new." And people give you 10 reasons of why existing small businesses don't want to come online. I think all of those excuses are now gone, because every single business that wants to stay relevant, big or small, needs to come online because people are not going offline anymore, right? Irrespective of where you are. So everyone figured out that they want to go online. Like the intent automatically was created. I still remember as soon as the pandemic hit, 7 months forward, the inbound demand from small businesses to come online onto a platform was massive. And these are the same people who did not want to, who wanted to stick to their old ways of selling to customers. And the same thing has happened to consumers as well. Like consumers who said, "I don't want to learn something new buying online. I'm very happy with going to my offline shop and do this." They also figured out how to do all of this. So I think we've been lucky with timing. And these two inflection points have happened in a matter of like 3 to 4 years. And suddenly this market for unorganized retail online has like come online in the very recent past. So I think this is like why now, but why is it different than the old models is also really important, right? Because this market was not there. If you see the first e-commerce wave in India, the e-commerce 1.0, as I say, was purely focused on tier 1 customers selling brands. So bringing brands online across branded categories and bringing customers in tier 1 cities online, because those are the only folks who were online. And bringing brands was easier because fewer SKUs, hero SKUs, these are the only SKUs that work. Like small businesses, long tail, how do you decide what to kind of keep in your warehouse and so on. So it was very convenient. So it made sense for you to kind of do this. But when you go toward the unorganized retail, a lot of problems come that just never were experienced in the e-commerce 1.0 wave. First is trust and quality is an entirely different problem, right? And I think that was one thing that we really solved very well with our women entrepreneurs. These are well-respected, well-known women in a particular community. Everyone trusts her judgment, and people come to her for recommendations around what to wear in the next marriage or the next function. And the day she starts to recommend products and give people assurance, hey, don't worry about the quality. If it's bad, I will take a return. People start to feel comfortable, where if they go to a direct website, they were not. And that's why the first mall type experience of selling products did not work for them. Because how do you sell some of these products like in a mall type format? You can't do it. So I think leveraging them was very important. Thinking about products for small business first was also really important. Like if you look at the e-commerce 1.0 wave, because they maintain it like a mall, you will see all products are cataloged with a model wearing it with a white background. Every single product is like this. By the way, you go to a small business and ask them, will you do it? 99% people will say no. Why? Because they've never upfront invested in a product before they even know whether sales will come for this particular product. And it cost about 400 to 500 rupees for a model photo shoot. All right. So I'm saying this was built for a brand, but they have the same guidelines for every single seller on the platform, and it has been carried forward since then. So there are lots of things that we had to solve product wise, policy wise, guideline wise, and business model wise to get this unorganized retail online, right? And some of these problems are fundamentally very different than what was solved before. And when we started, obviously people said, hey, like, will you exist when some of these platforms are so large? And we kept saying we will, and most people did not believe in us, but we have seen, like, we just kept growing. More and more people come and buy from here, and they don't go to some of those ways, because unorganized retail doesn't sell the way you sell some of the other products and categories.
Absolutely. No, very fascinating. And particularly when you think about these, let's call them, tier 2, tier 3, and sort of the tier 4 customers, is also accessibility of the technology an issue? One is, of course, the trust, right? To say that I believe this lady who is my friend or my, neighbor or senior or whatever it is. But is it more complicated for them to necessarily buy in the e-commerce 1.0 manner? Which is also, I actually also wanted to get your thought about this whole notion of video commerce and social commerce and other forms of social commerce. Are all accessibility, is that also an issue beyond trust to make it easy?
Yeah, and I think that's true. And that's why WhatsApp as a channel worked much better than some of the other ones, because that was something that people learned first. So one thing which is very important was getting this entrepreneur to come in between. But the other thing was what channel to go after. And us nudging people to use WhatsApp because that's the thing that was most familiar to them, right? And then you keep making them understand more and more parts of the whole experience. I still remember, by the way, like when we built the first version of the Meesho app, we built an app that looked like a WhatsApp group where you can buy products.
Right.
Because when we used to speak to some of our users who are these entrepreneurs, they'd never use any other app except WhatsApp, right? So what was most familiar to them is open an app and start browsing like this. So we did not have tabs because they never saw it on the WhatsApp app for a very long time, at least back then. So I think we built the same experience because that was familiar to them. So I definitely think accessibility was a problem, which obviously keeps getting better and better as people get used to some of these things. And I feel there are problems even today. Like people talk about, like, for example, I'll give you one very interesting stat. On Meesho's product, more people do image search than they do text search. Because text search is not natural to them. They've never done text search in their lives before. But the way they express what do they are looking for, they come, take screenshot of something and just share and say, I want something like this. And it can be a screen, like it can be a photograph of something around them. It can be a photograph that they're seen online. So even today, we have more image searches than we have text searches, which I don't think you can find elsewhere, but it's natural to people.
Right.
So I'm saying that the way they access happens in some of these cases is entirely different. And that's why I am a big believer of something like a video to solve for this. If you go on YouTube today, you'll find like thousands and maybe lakhs of these influencers selling products to customers, and they are heavily followed. Like people come and look at their every single video, and when this one influencer say buy this from me, people buy from her. Because again, she solves the same thing. She builds trust. She shows the product from multiple angles. She adds a value proposition. So she becomes the salesperson here. So she's solving very similar problems to what an entrepreneur was doing in our context, right? Something different and different forms of commerce will keep coming that will solve very nuanced and local problems in the country. And I think that will only grow. It's not going down. Like people are only moving towards some of these experiences rather than reverting back to the 1.0 wave of how people bought by searching and then getting to the product.
Fabulous. So with it, as we come towards the end of the podcast here, I want to switch gears from e-commerce and Meesho to just your journey as a founder. And I can't just but let this in, even though it is a little bit of egg on my face. You and I were in an event at Leela Palace in Bangalore a couple of years ago, and I was hustling to get a selfie with Kapil Dev. And I still can remember vividly, you're saying, what's the big fuss about this Kapil Dev guy? Like, who is he? And I'm like, okay, I know you're young, but don't rub it in my face, man. But even so, you accomplished a lot, right, in your journey as a founder and as a professional. So what has been your personal learning journey been like, right? What have you learned about yourself? What would you advise the Vidit of 2015 or 2012 as you were graduating from IITD? If you were to do this differently, what would you advise yourself?
I think if I go back I think one thing that I would do differently if I can is I would start up even sooner, right? So I think we always place too much value to like what's the right time to do it, what experience should you have before. I think one thing that we realized is when we got into it, we realized like we just don't know most of it, right? And you have to figure it out on the job. You have to fall many times and you learn it and then you start doing. I think in the early days, I worked at a couple of companies. Then I thought that, hey, now I can do it. This is the right time. I think we could have done it earlier. That's the only thing. If I will go back and change, I don't think anything else I would change, because even the mistakes that we made is how we have learned and got where we are, right? Like every single mistake we made was a learning opportunity. If we did not make those mistakes, we would not have those learnings, and then maybe we'll not be where we are today. In terms of personal development as a founder, what I would say is both Sanjeev and I have a mindset from the early days is what has got us here will not take us where we want to be. And I think if you keep reminding yourself of this, you essentially have a very strong growth and learning mindset at all points in time. So we are always figuring out what does it take for us to get to the next milestone? And then what does it take for us individually to learn new? What kind of new competencies, skills, anything that we need to learn right now so that we can start investing behind it. And when you know you have to keep doing this, you keep figuring out ways. And again, specific change depending on what stage of the company you are in, what kind of problems you're solving. So in the 0 to 1 days, we were doing all product, tech, growth, marketing ourselves, right? Then a lot of things happen is you start to delegate a lot more. So I become a manager of people, and then you have to learn management for the first time. Then after that, you start to hire very senior people. Managing them is very different from the kind of people I was managing like 3 years ago. The kind of work you start to do, the kind of time you start to spend in, like if I start to go and spend time in specific product every single time now, I become the biggest bottleneck in the company now, right? So how do you empower, enable, start to think about processes, start to think about more long-term vision of the company, like even thinking about culture. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I did not even understand what culture means. People used to talk about culture as if it's like just doing parties in a company, right? Like that's what people meant about culture. But to me now, I understand what culture means. It's about people's behavior, and then you have to start investing behind it. So every single year, I think we have worked on very different things. And we also realized the importance of things that we did not even know before. But the underlying theme, the foundation comes from the fact that we know that what got us here will not take us where we want to be. And unless we really upgrade ourselves, then we would be the worst founders to kind of lead this company at that stage, right? And that's not what we want to be. Something that keeps us on our toes, and that helps us keep looking at the horizon and say, where should we start investing our time in, and what should we learn now?
I think that is a absolute perfect high to end the podcast on. I think be a continuous learning machine. I think that applies to entrepreneurs. I think that applies to any professional, that applies to VCs, because I think the world around us is changing so fast that if we don't, we're not going to get there. So thank you so much with it. It is a delight. I know we could go on for a while, but really appreciate you sharing your time and your insights with us and all the listeners.
Thank you, Amit.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.